What's up, Gold Guy? What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Gold Guy YouTube channel. You are watching another episode of the YZ450 rebuild. Time to put the engine back together. In the last video, if you didn't see it, link up here in the description, I got the head rebuilt, all the new valves in there, and I realized that I can check the valve clearances without getting the timing chain on here. So I'm going to start out by doing that. Alright, looks like the valve clearances should be 0.10 to 0.15 millimeter on the intake side and 0.20 to 0.25 on the exhaust side. So I'm going to get a little bit of assembly lube on the camshafts while I'm spinning them around. A little bit in the bearing. Here's my 0.20 millimeter shim. See how close that is. Might have to get the cap on for this part. Lobes have to be pointing away from the valves for this part. Whoa. I can't even get a 0.05 millimeter in there, so there's like no clearance. So I'm gonna definitely need to swap that one for a lot smaller shim. Right, so I had a 2 millimeter shim in there. I need something more like a 1.5 millimeter shim, I think. Can't hurt to have a little bit of assembly lube on these buckets too. I also read that it's better to stay on the lower end of the spectrum, so that means I want my clearances at the lowest, which was 0.20 millimeter. I've got a 0.20 millimeter, and hot damn, that looks to be the spec. Same for the other valve. 0.23. Nope. Gotta just rebuild the lower end, get it all back together, then get the top end on the engine. We'll be golden. So hopefully you guys enjoy this engine rebuild. Yeah, after this, we'll be getting this thing back on the bike. And then I gotta find an exhaust, get some water lines hooked up, and that's it. This bike will be rideable, and it's gonna be awesome. I'm so excited to feel the power of this 450. Check this out. So everything on this side looks good, and then I realized that, well, I knew the shift rod was bent a while ago. Nothing's cracked. The rod's just bent. I don't know how it happened, but it is. I realized that I have to get the new rod in there before I can put the clutch in. So I guess the next thing to do is cut this off as close to the engine as I can, and then just try to pull it through the other way. Alright, there we go. And yes, I did try to bend it straight first. Could not get it. So this is my second plan. This is plan B. Not without a fight, huh? This seal has gotta be destroyed. Definitely want to order a new one of those. Getting hung up. Not the way. Do you know the way? I'm just gonna keep cutting. I'm gonna have to clean the shit out of this. Well, now I can see I just have to finish cutting the rod on this side nice and straight, because I know it is, and I can then pound it through that way. We're through. We're through, boys. So I can get that spring out of there now. and this little slider spacer thing. Get this out. Success. Well, that's why I couldn't pound it through, because it was still bent on the end. And here's the new one. Alright, here we go. Get some assembly lube. Nice. Now we can get the clutch on there and close up the bottom end. So now we've got all these clutch plates, and these friction plates don't really need to do anything to them, but maybe wipe them off and just soak them in a little bit more motorcycle oil. They do still have a lot of good pad left on them, so that's why I am reusing them. And as far as the steel plates go, they're definitely going to need cleaned off and deglazed as well. Seems to clean them pretty well. This is the oil I'm going to be using in the YZ450, 10W40 4-stroke motorcycle oil. It's oil, people. Now I'm going to use this to soak the clutch plates in. First off, I'm going to start by giving these the old wipe down too. Looks like they may have gotten a little rusty or something. Gonna try some WD-40 to clean these things off a little bit. Seems like that worked pretty good at cleaning it, but they still got some weird, rough, rusty spots on them. Definitely do have some glazing going on. Now I've got some 220 grit sandpaper here. I'm gonna use this to looking better already. Alright, say all these clutch plates look deglazed and cleaned up enough for me. So let's reassemble a clutch. I just finished cleaning all of the clutch components. The basket's all clean, this piece is all cleaned up, and then this piece. And then we drop it in. Alright, now we're ready for a clutch plate. And the last steel plate. Nice. According to the parts diagram, I'm supposed to have 8 friction plates and 7 steel plates. I have 7 of both, which means I'm missing one of the friction plates. Of course, always missing something. First, I thought this was the only thing I was missing. The clutch rod, and I actually don't need this, but it came with it for the same price. But I needed the rod that actuates the clutch, and then this is the kind of like a throwout bearing for a car. This is basically that. It's a bearing, and this pushes the clutch basket out, which releases the clutch. Thought this was the only thing I'm missing, but no, I'm missing one of the plates. Well, this is the cheapest one I could find, just one plate for 12 bucks plus $4 shipping. $16 for one friction plate, which added to the list, I guess. Alright, it's been a few days and I've got the single clutch plate. I've got some motor oil right here. I'm just gonna oil this up a little bit and we should be good. Alright, now we should be able to install this clutch. Before I install this, I'm going to get some assembly lube on the teeth of the primary drive gear and also on the smaller gear. And the owner's manual said to use motor oil in here, so that's exactly what I did. I'll get a little bit more in there. Now we should be ready to go. Now this thrust washer There we are. Then this washer. And then the nut. Alright, so I've got a big old socket and a torque wrench. I'm ready to torque this nut down. But as you can see, the inner clutch boss just spins, and I don't have a clutch holder tool. I need to buy one of those. What I'm going to do instead is throw a pair of vice grips on the main drive sprocket with a rag wrapped around it, of course, and hold it in place with the transmission and gear. And then I'm going to torque that down to 54 foot-pounds. Just don't want to get on the threads. Okay, there we go. Let's see what we can do. Definitely got some torque on it, but still didn't get that click. Got it as tight as I can get it. Now let's bend that tab. There we go. It shows that rod, and then the ball bearing, and then the throwout bearing. That's what I'm calling it. And then we install the pressure plate. Okay. And that goes. And the ball bearing actually goes inside this piece, so I'll just drop it in there. Get some oil in there. Oil up this part of the bearing. And then slide that in. Let's test it. Alright, in we go. Now the last thing to do with the clutch is to torque these bolts down to 7.2 foot-pounds. To do that, I'm going to use this copper washer and stick it in between these two gears, which will lock it up, and now I can torque these down. I knew I hated that torque wrench. It wasn't even clicking. And snapped a bolt. This time just 7 foot-pounds. There's a click. And now it's time for a new shift shaft seal. I almost said shift shaft seal. This is the one I'm going with. There we go. These seals don't look bad, but here's the Kickstarter seal. Since I have all the new seals, I might as well. Now I've got to start preparing the lower end for the mating of the top end. And I'm going to use this plastic scraper just to scrape off these little pieces of old gasket. And I'm going to be careful not to get them in any of these, the water line holes or the oil holes or anything. Alright, I'd say we're ready for the gasket. Get the timing chain through there. Okay. Next, gotta get the piston on, get some oil on there. I'm gonna get some oil on the crankshaft as well. No play in the connecting rod, which is good. Alright, in we go. And a little bit more. Perfect. Now we can get the clip on once I find it. Definitely gonna get some oil all in the cylinder and on the piston rings. Alright, let's get this thing in. Okay, top ring is a go, and the bottom ring loading. Okay, we're seated. Let's get the timing chain through the cylinder. Okay. There we go. Just had to get that bottom oil control ring in there just right. Okay. Just a little bit important. I missed the dowel pins. Forgot to put those in. 1, 2. There we go. That's better. Oh, nice. This is a multi-layered steel gasket for the head gasket. Came in the Tusk kit. Gotta find 2 more dowel pins. They go on the back side here, so opposite of the... And now it's time to say bye-bye to the valve. The YZ450 manual actually says to use moly grease on the threads of the bolts, head bolts. In. We also need to apply some of this moly grease to the contact surfaces of the bolt heads. Now I'm going to torque these to 20 foot-pounds. Now the manual literally says to take the bolts back out and apply more of that moly grease to the threads and the contact surfaces again, and then torque it down. I had to put the engine on its side to just hold it in place a little bit better. But I've now got all the bolts tightened down to 14 foot-pounds a piece. So I'm not making this up. This is the next step. I have to get a marker and mark the head and the bolt at the location where they are now at 14 foot-pounds. And then I turn it 180 degrees. So we started here, turn it all the way, half a turn basically. Crazy tight. 180 degrees. My ass. I'm slowly getting there. I'm almost there. I just looked it up. This is called angle torquing. And it's supposed to eliminate factors of thread friction and stuff like that, throwing off a torque wrench. I'm gonna break my wrist. Ugh. There's all 4 of them, angle torqued to probably like 300 foot-pounds, ready to go. Can't forget these bolts on the side of the cylinder and head. Almost forgot them. My torque wrench is clicking, it's just so quiet I can barely hear it. I need to get a digital torque wrench. If anyone wants to help me out, you can donate. PayPal in the description. Now it's time to officially install the camshafts and close up the head. I'm gonna get some more of that moly grease on all of these buckets, the tops and the sides. And a little bit extra on all of the tops here. Need the moly grease on the cam journals as well. The whole camshaft pretty much gets moly grease. The lobes, the journals. Manual also says that the decompression system needs to be lubricated with engine oil. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm also going to hit these bearings again with a little bit more assembly lube. I also don't want to forget these little half moon circlip thingies. Now we need to make sure this thing's in top dead center. To do that, we gotta pop this cap off. And there we go. Now I have to turn the engine over. The marks line up. Align the TDC mark A on the rotor with the alignment mark B on the crankcase cover when piston is at top dead center on compression stroke. This was very confusing as there were a few different marks, but there's something that looks like a big stretched out H to the left, and then there's the actual timing mark, which is just a line. So that needs to be pointing right at this little slice in the crankshaft or crankcase cover thing. Now I'm ready to set the valve or the camshaft timing marks. These little dots here and here line up with the head. Now we can reinstall the camshaft caps. Now I have to use the stupid torque wrench again to torque the camshaft cap bolts to 7 foot-pounds. Next, the timing chain tensioner goes in. Here it is. I also had to buy this on eBay, but it was only like 10 or 15 bucks. And it comes with the bolts. There's a little flathead screw head in there. We have to use that to wind up the spring all the way. That made the rod go in. Oh, it actually stays like that. I thought I had to hold it. And then the bolts go in. And these also get torqued to 10 Newton meters. Alright, now we release the screwdriver tension thing. And now this bolt goes back on. So I've released the tension on the screwdriver, which was basically just turning it back counterclockwise. And this only gets torqued to 5 foot-pounds. So the timing is set, and we're all good to go. Let's get those caps back in, get the valve cover back on. Bye-bye, valves. Now I'm all ready to close up the lower end. Get my dowel in there, get one on top. Okay. Yeah, I know the Kickstarter is green and red. Still have a little bit of work to do, but that paint would strip off super easy. This has probably been the longest engine reassembly of all time. It took me about 3 months. No, not really. The actual assembly wasn't bad, but finding all the parts for a good deal took quite a while, and that's why this project has been taking so long. I spent quite a bit of money on the lower end, and I kind of set myself up for failure. But I think I saved myself by being stingy and buying parts that actually didn't fit and then selling them and making more. If you want to see more about that, then check out this video in the description too. That's just an overview of all the parts I bought for this thing. But it's all assembled now, and it's pretty much ready to go back on the bike. So I guess that'll be the next video, getting this thing back on the bike and starting it, maybe. I still have to find an exhaust and some coolant lines, but that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and find some on eBay, and then this thing will be ready to rip, hopefully. Hopefully it doesn't blow up, but we'll find out together. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you want to see this thing blow up or start for the first time, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay in the loop and so you don't miss out on one of my videos. If you liked it, hit that like button. And if you want to say anything, hopefully something nice, put it in the comments down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.